Hey guys, tonight we're not storming any castles or navigating ancient plagues. No, tonight. We're in Egypt. Not the dramatic Egypt with curses and crumbling tombs. No scorpions leaping from sarcophagi here. This is the Egypt of slow days, slower decisions, and one man's spectacularly uneventful reign. A pharaoh who ruled for so long, even the statues started yawning. The sandstone walls glow peach in the early morning sun. Outside your window, palm trees barely rustle. The Nile drifts by like a sleepy crocodile with no plans today. Inside, servants pad quietly across the tiled floor. One pours wine, another adjusts a curtain. You, however, are not particularly enthused. You're the pharaoh, and after 4 decades of ceremonial fruit baskets, even sunrise feels predictable. You prop yourself up on embroidered cushions. Another day of politely inspecting temple renovations, nodding at petitioners whose names you'll never remember, and pretending to care which breed of cat is most divine. You might have been excited back when the crown still pinched, but now even the cobra on your headdress seems to sigh. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing the whole sleepy map light up in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle across the cool stone floor and head toward the Great Hall. Courtiers await, all pretending not to be bored. One man adjusts his sandals for the third time in 5 minutes. Another practices smiling into a bronze mirror. Today's schedule includes a blessing of the granaries again, a light discussion about the price of barley still high, and maybe if you're feeling rebellious, rearranging your papyrus scroll collection. Historians still argue whether this pharaoh's long reign was the result of divine favor, political boredom, or a suspiciously good personal physician. But one thing is certain, you've perfected the art of doing very little with maximum ceremony. The high priest greets you with a phrase you've heard 14,000 times: "May the gods bless your reign, O golden one." You mumble something that could pass for gratitude and shuffle along. The sandals squeak. Even your falcon perched on a gold rod seems to be faking enthusiasm. Back in your youth, you might have taken this morning to inspect troops, discuss tax codes, or dream of expansion. But now you mostly wonder if anyone would notice if you just didn't show up to the barley meeting. Spoiler, they would. They'd still hold it. And your absence would spark a year-long rumor about your mysterious disappearance, one that would fizzle out once someone found you asleep behind a curtain clutching a plum. You eventually take your seat on the throne, which is less a seat and more a stiff, over-decorated punishment for your spine. A noble begins reciting something about a shipment of fish being delayed by crocodiles. You stop listening halfway through the word dried eels. Instead, your mind drifts. You imagine commissioning a mural of yourself sitting very still with the caption, "Still ruling. Please wait." They'd probably carve it. And the people, they'd probably praise its symbolism. Because here's the truth: when everything runs smoothly, no wars, no major famines, no palace scandals, people get creative with their praise. A grain shipment arrives on time. Blessed be the Pharaoh. A new canal doesn't collapse immediately. Your wisdom flows like the Nile. You sneeze and don't die. Truly, the gods favor our king. You start to suspect you could vanish for a week and return with twigs in your beard, and your advisors would say, "Ah, the pharaoh has returned from his sacred desert meditation." You glance at your falcon again. It yawns. You wonder, was it always this bored? You make it through the barley discussion with the grace of someone who has mentally replaced every word with the thought, "I could be napping." The vizier drones on about riverbank yields, scribes scurry around balancing ledgers the size of tombstones, and someone keeps coughing into a silk handkerchief like it's an audition for the world's least compelling drama. Eventually, the palace doors swing open again. A trumpet bleats out a note so flat it could be a sheet of papyrus, and in comes your official event schedule for the week, carried by a boy who looks just old enough to regret this job. You unfold the scroll, skim it, and discover that today's royal inspection includes a statue polishing ceremony, an audience with the Ministry of Reed Basket Affairs, and a sunset appearance on the East Terrace to be silently admired for 20 minutes. Even your inner monologue sighs. You rise, adjust your belt with slow performative dignity, and begin your slow march to the Hall of Stone Lions. You walk past columns taller than your ambition. Everything smells faintly of date oil incense and floor wax. The lions lining the hall glare down at you like they're silently judging your work ethic. A priest approaches with a ceremonial platter, its contents covered by a bit of linen. You already know what's under it. You've seen it for 27 years in a row. Behold the ceremonial fruit plate. It's got the usual suspects: half a fig of pomegranate slice that looks like it's been thinking about retirement, and something round that no one can identify. You smile, not approvingly, and take a piece. It's dry. You eat it anyway. Not because you like it, but because it's expected. Also, it's your only form of rebellion not likely to cause an international incident. Historians still argue whether the excessive ceremonial repetition in late dynastic Egypt served a religious purpose or was simply the result of overachieving scribes with too much time and too little creativity. You suspect both. By the time you reach the statue polishing, a small crowd has gathered. Artisans crouch around a seated stone likeness of you, gently buffing the shins. It's not even a particularly flattering statue. You look like someone trying to solve a math problem in the heat. Still, the crowd murmurs with reverence. With a child nearby whispers he looks wise. You resist the urge to whisper back he looks tired. But the real triumph of the morning comes when you notice that someone's left a small wooden stool near the base of the statue. A stool. You pretend not to notice it as you inch over. Sit. And for the first time in weeks, you lower yourself onto something that isn't carved gilded or designed to prove how immortal your posture is. The stool creaks slightly. It is without question the most human moment you've had all month. A passing noble frowns at your informal perch. You raise an eyebrow. He pretends he didn't see. Back in the day, you were full of royal fire. You had visions of reforms, public works calendar changes. You even tried to invent a new tax based on how many sandals someone owned, but no one could figure out how to count left and right separately. These days, you're lucky if you make it through a full ceremony without blinking out for a minute and dreaming about olives. Someone brings a painted gourd to your side. Apparently, it's a tribute from a town that really likes gourds. You accept it with regal silence. It's bumpy. You think it looks a little like your uncle. Another advisor approaches. This one has a scroll and a hopeful look, which means he's either about to propose a monument or a marriage alliance with someone's niece who thinks hieroglyphs are too squiggly. It's the latter. You nod, say you'll consider it, and quietly pass the scroll to the minister of politely forgetting things. Eventually, the sun begins its dramatic descent across the Nile. You climb to the East Terrace. Well, you're helped. There are 74 steps. You count them every time. The crowd is already gathered. Farmers, artisans, merchants, all there to watch you do? Not much. You stand still. They cheer. You blink. They cheer louder. It's oddly comforting. Your falcon circles overhead, probably looking for snacks. And for a brief moment, with the breeze catching your robes and the smell of lotus in the air, you don't feel bored. You feel serene. Then the moment passes, and you realize the same exact thing will happen tomorrow. Still, you wave anyway. They deserve that much. You wake the next morning not with urgency or dread, but with that dull sense of routine that wraps around your brain like a slightly damp linen sheet. The first thing you hear is the royal rooster crowing, a creature so pampered, it has its own sleeping cushion and a food taster. Historians still argue whether royal livestock were truly symbolic or just unusually spoiled pets. This one has an attitude that suggests both. Your chamber smells of warm stone-scented oils and a lingering whiff of last night's slightly overcooked lentils. A servant tiptoes in with your wardrobe options, which are all essentially the same light linen tunics in slightly varied shades of beige. You choose the one with the faint golden trim. Not because it's special, but because it was on top. After a brief and ceremonious washing of the face with rose water, performed by a man who once claimed to have invented a new towel folding method, you begin the march toward today's royal duties. And by march, we do mean shuffle with sandals. Today, the scroll of events includes a visit to the Ministry of Weights and Measures, where someone will inevitably debate the length of a cubit for half an hour, a portrait session for your 48th official likeness, and a ceremonial unrolling of the royal reed mat in the hall of thoughtful sitting. The Ministry of Weights and Measures is housed in a building so symmetrical it gives you a headache. Inside, several officials are arguing about whether a standard weight should be based on the volume of goat milk or the density of sun-dried bricks. You sit on a platform surrounded by scrolls and size and listen to a lecture on balanced scales. There's a moment of brief excitement when one of the measuring stones chips. A hush falls over the room. The man responsible begins to cry. You wave it off. Honestly, it was the most interesting thing that's happened in the chamber since a scribe spilled ink on his sandals last month. Back at the palace, it's time for your portrait. The artist Nessim Kura has been drawing you annually for 2 decades. You've watched his beard gray and his eyesight fade, but he insists on painting you as a 25-year-old with unusually defined arms. You've never corrected him. He squints at you, you squint back. Perhaps this year Majesty would like to be painted holding something dynamic, he suggests. You think for a moment, a fish, you say. He nods gravely and sketches a tilapia with the elegance of someone who has never seen a fish up close. While he paints you, stare off into the middle distance and reflect on all the portraits of you that now exist. In them, you are always serene, always confident, always slightly constipated. Historians still argue whether this frozen, idealized imagery was a political tool or simply the result of a cultural love for symmetry and predictability. Either way, your nostrils have never looked so consistent. Next comes the ceremonial unrolling of the royal reed mat. It is said that sitting upon this mat grants wisdom and clarity. In reality, it's lumpy and smells faintly of mildew. You settle into a cross-legged pose that your joints no longer appreciate while your advisors form a half circle. Majesty begins your high scribe. We have narrowed the choices for this year's ceremonial flower to 3 finalists. You blink slowly. Go on. He launches into an impassioned speech comparing the subtle spiritual significance of the blue lotus versus the white daisy, complete with poetry excerpts and footnotes. Somewhere around stanza 4, you briefly leave your body and mentally compose a shopping list. Back in your head, you realize you haven't moved in 10 minutes. Your legs are numb. You discreetly shift one foot, and the mat lets out a noise that is neither regal nor silent. Everyone pretends not to notice. To end the session, you're asked to offer a single word of wisdom. You consider your options balance, grace, or fish before finally saying continue. They nod sagely as if you've just solved a riddle passed down by Ra himself. Later, back in your private garden, you shuffle past rows of carefully manicured papyrus plants and mildly suspicious peacocks. You sit beneath a fig tree, pluck a fruit, and chew thoughtfully while a servant fans you with palm fronds. The sun is warm, the shade is cool. You think about that painting of you holding a fish and wonder what future generations will make of it. You hope they at least enjoy the irony. You're already awake when the temple bells begin their low metallic chorus, a sound designed to remind the citizens of the gods, but which mostly reminds you that sandals do not cushion the soul. You stretch your arms, take a moment to watch the dust float lazily in sunbeams, and prepare yourself for today's highlight, the royal wardrobe consultation. Again. Your chief tailor, an earnest man named Bedtime, insists that fashion is the soul of a kingdom. He enters the chamber with a reverence usually reserved for sacred relics, cradling bolts of linen like newborns. You have, of course, worn variations of the same tunic for decades now, loose white practical. But Bedtime is determined to innovate. Majesty, he says with solemn joy, may I present the half sleeve. You look at the tunic. It's a normal tunic, but the sleeves end slightly above the elbow. Revolutionary. You try it on. You murmur, examining your elbow as if it holds the answers to dynastic continuity. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptian clothing truly evolved or if tailors simply got bored. This, you suspect, is the latter. The tunic is approved. Feeling a spark of uncharacteristic rebellion, you ask for sandals with a different strap pattern. The court gasps. Bedtime faints. You continue with your morning promenade through the palace of painted walls. The murals here are splendid sun gods, steering boats, falcon-headed warriors, and one memorable painting of your uncle being embraced by a goddess who looks suspiciously like his second wife. Today's agenda includes the annual ceremonial weaving demonstration. You're escorted to the court of looms where a dozen craftspeople sit cross-legged in perfect rows, rhythmically pulling fibers into tapestries. A few smile nervously as you pass. You stop beside one particularly vivid tapestry in progress, an abstract design involving stylized reeds, a sun disk, and what may or may not be a lizard. Majesty, the head weaver, says, bowing low, this piece honors your many peaceful summers. You nod gravely. May they be remembered for their quietness. She beams, and their soft linens, sire. Absolutely, soft linens. After the loom ceremony, you're presented with your choices for the season's royal headpiece. Option 1, the classic white crown. Option 2, the classic red crown. Option 3, a slightly tilted hybrid crown that looks like it's trying too hard. You choose option 1 mostly because the red crown keeps falling off. There's a small parade today, a tribute to the Nile's fertility and the excellent onion crop. You're expected to wave from the royal balcony, which is more of a large stone ledge with the occasional pigeon. Your arm raises automatically, a slow side-to-side motion refined over years of practice. Your fingers, once youthful, now resemble the roots of a tired olive tree. Below, priests wave burning incense. Musicians beat hand drums. A man in a duck mask does a ceremonial jig. It is said that laughter honors the gods, although this particular dance might be pushing it. Your visor, a ceremonial fanboy named Many, leans over and says, Majesty, shall I initiate the onion chant? You raise one eyebrow. Again, it uplifts the people. Very well. He turns and shouts to the crowd ode to the great bulb. A chorus of citizens replies in rhythm layers of life spice of the Nile. You clap slowly, once. Back inside, it's time for the sacred sandal fitting a tradition whose origins are shrouded in both mystery and foot powder. You sit on a cushion while two sandal crafters argue over arch support. They eventually present a new pair made from braided papyrus and inlaid with turquoise beads. They sparkle in the sun. You try them on. They squeak. You nod. Outside your private chamber, the royal cat lounges in a sunbeam. Her name is Nut Blessed, and she is both revered and feared. Rumor has it she once chased a scribe into the reflecting pool for scratching her ear wrong. She watches you now unblinking. You bow slightly. She does not return the gesture. You move to the Hall of Whispering Walls, so named because of the strange way sound carries inside. If you speak near one end, your voice echoes out from the other, startling visitors and occasionally interrupting meditation. Today, two advisors are waiting with scrolls detailing upcoming fashion trends in Thebes. Apparently, someone there has started dyeing linen with crushed beetles for a red tint. Scandalous. Should we adopt the beetle hue, Majesty, one asks? You run a hand through your hair and say, only if we also adopt beetles. They don't know if you're joking, you don't clarify. As the day winds down, you change into your evening tunic, a slightly looser garment with a sash that never sits quite right. Dinner is served in the garden of gentle winds, dates, flatbread stewed lentils, a single grilled quail, and something gelatinous that might be a dessert or might be an accident. You chew thoughtfully while watching the sun lower itself over the western palm trees. You once asked a priest why sunsets always looked so tired. He told you it was Ra descending into the underworld. You suspect Ra just needs a nap. You sleep lightly the way pharaohs always have, half draped in linen, one ear tuned to the subtle crunch of sandals in the hallway, the other to your own thoughts repeating like a scroll that refuses to roll shut. When morning comes, it tiptoes in as a pink haze over the Nile casting the river, in that suspiciously poetic light that makes every priest want to compose a hymn, and every scribe want to over-describe the fish. You stretch. Today is inspection day, which sounds productive but mostly involves walking slowly while nodding at things. First stop, the royal grain storage. You're handed a palm leaf ledger and escorted by two anxious stewards who speak in reverent whispers as though your presence might cause the grain to multiply or combust. One of them frowns at a pile of sacks. Majesty, we had 12 bushels of emmer here yesterday. And now you ask. 12. You nod solemnly, a miracle of consistency. He beams, clearly relieved not to be buried in sand today. Historians still argue whether Egyptian record-keeping was a bureaucratic marvel or just an elaborate excuse to never throw anything away. Judging by your archives, it might be both. There's a tablet somewhere documenting how many locusts were spotted on a Tuesday in year 7 of your reign. 4. It was a slow day. Next, you visit the Royal Boat Workshop, a dusty courtyard where ships for the gods are carved, painted, and ceremonially launched. The chief carpenter proudly shows you the latest creation, a slender reed vessel with gold leaf trim and a decorative cow head at the bow. For Hathor, he explains. You nod approvingly. She'll love it. She's always had a flair for dramatic sea entries. The boat is named Mist of the Moon, a little poetic for your taste, but the name has already been carved into the hull, so onward. You step into the perfume hall, an oddly quiet chamber filled with pottery jars, drying herbs, and a fragrance so potent, your nose begins to write its own memoir. The perfumer, a woman named Satsubek, bows. Majesty, may I present Divine Sweat, a blend of myrrh, lotus, and something secret. You sniff, you blink, you sneeze. Excellent, you declare. I smell like a priest's dream. She giggles behind her hand. Shall I bottle more? Perhaps keep it limited edition. Outside, a delegation from the southern provinces awaits in the Garden of the Second Sun. They're here to offer gifts and quietly check whether you're still alive. They bring baskets of ostrich feathers, polished ivory combs, and a musical instrument that looks suspiciously like a weapon. You accept them all with practiced delight, then ask about the weather. Always a safe move. One of them, a wiry young man with excellent cheekbones, presents a scroll painted with what he claims is the newest fashion in tent architecture. Open-air corners, he says proudly. You nod gravely, unsure what that means, but commit to approving it anyway. Back inside, you stop at the scribe's terrace. Here, young scribes practice copying hymns and royal decrees under the supervision of an old man who looks like he invented ink. He waves as you pass. Majesty. The apprentices have nearly mastered your morning reflection proclamation. You wince. That's the one where you mused for 20 minutes about how figs resemble wisdom, and then accidentally compared yourself to a camel. Good, you say. May it confuse future generations. One young scribe drops his reed pen in panic. You give him a smile. He may never recover. Lunch arrives in a stone courtyard draped with gauze to keep the flies away. Your plate is mostly lentils again, but someone has managed to sculpt a duck out of melon rind. You admire it for a long moment before deciding not to eat it. Art deserves better. After lunch comes the highlight of the day, the Papyrus Gallery review. You step into a chamber with walls lined in scrolls so tightly packed it would take 3 lifetimes just to misfile them. The royal archivist, a thin woman with the posture of a reed and the temperament of a thundercloud, greets you with a bow that creaks like an old door. Majesty, would you care to view the treatise on shade plants? You raise an eyebrow. Again. She nods very seriously. It has been updated. Updated shade plants. Scandalous. She unfurls the scroll. You spend the next hour learning about the ideal placement of lotus pots for optimal cooling and whether palm fronds should be braided or left wild. A heated scholarly debate has broken out in the margins of the scroll, 2 different ink styles arguing about whether lilies count as shade plants if they only bloom at noon. You chuckle. Remind me to draft a reply. Shall I declare it under royal decree, she asks. Only if we want the lily scholars to riot. You leave the gallery feeling both enlightened and slightly sleepy. On your way to the next event, you're momentarily stopped by a procession of sacred geese. They waddle with solemn dignity across the hall, each one wearing a tiny gold ribbon. The high priest of Amun bows as he guides them past. We honor the feathered ones. You glance at the geese, one honks judgmentally. As do I, you murmur. Later, you stand at your balcony again, the sun dipping low into a burnt orange sky. The Nile glows like a strip of molten copper. You sigh, not out of sorrow or joy, but out of pure, well-aged tedium. The sun sets, the procession ends. The geese presumably return to their chambers. You prepare for another quiet night, royal boredom at its most majestic. The moon is out now, casting soft light across the sandstone courtyards and still water basins, the kind of silver glow that poets write about but never quite capture. You, meanwhile, are wrapped in linen too nice to sleep in and pacing slowly past a wall relief, depicting your own coronation. You were 17 and that carving jaw sharp with ambition and chin permanently pointed skyward as if defying gravity would impress the gods. It did not. But it did impress the stonemasons, who added an extra 2 inches to your height out of sheer flattery. Tonight's agenda dreams. More specifically, the Temple of Dreams, where high priests interpret symbolic night visions in ways that are definitely not influenced by temple politics. You enter barefoot as custom demands, and the limestone floor is cold beneath your toes. A priest in gold-trimmed robes greets you with a bow so deep it's practically a yoga pose. Majesty, he intones, do you bring a vision? I dreamt of a crocodile reciting poetry, you reply, in Greek. He nods gravely as though this is not the 5th crocodile dream you've had this month. Very auspicious, he says. The crocodile is the keeper of wisdom, and Greek is the language of scholars or tax collectors. Let's go with scholars. He gestures to an ivory-inlaid couch draped with purple linen. You recline, sip something herbal and mildly suspicious, and listen as he spins your dream into metaphorical gold. The crocodile represents suppressed wisdom. Perhaps you are undervalued. You raise an eyebrow. I am Pharaoh. He frowns slightly. Then perhaps others are undervaluing your decisions. That's more like it. Historians still argue whether the Temple of Dreams was a true spiritual haven or an elite gossip network with incense. Evidence suggests both. One papyrus even records a dream where a priest claimed the gods told him to ask for a raise. As the priest continues decoding your dream, now involving metaphorical boats in the ocean of doubt, you begin to drift. Not into sleep, exactly, but into a sort of royal twilight where thoughts stretch and meander like reeds in the Nile. You imagine what it would be like to disguise yourself for a day. Just one. No headdress, no sandals lined with papyrus leaves, no herald announcing your every sneeze. Would people still bow? Would they still flatter your dreams? Probably, but it's fun to pretend. Leaving the temple, you notice a cat has taken up residence on your sedan chair. It blinks at you with lazy defiance, then turns in a circle and settles down as if to say, "This is mine now." You sigh. Very well, we shall share. The cat does not reply, which is the only correct response to royal sarcasm. Back in your private chambers, a servant offers you a list of tomorrow's engagements. You glance at it while sipping water from a glazed ceramic cup shaped like a pomegranate, morning tribute viewing from the copper mines, midday chariot demonstration by a foreign envoy, evening audience with the papyrus taxation board. You set the scroll down gently and say, I shall require something stronger than water. The servant bows and leaves, probably to fetch another scroll. Moments later, the chief astronomer enters uninvited as usual because when you're the only one who can predict eclipses, you start ignoring door protocols. Majesty, he exclaims, pointing to the sky, there will be a comet in 3 nights. Will it destroy us all? Unlikely. Will it inspire panic? Almost certainly. You smile. Schedule a comet festival, nothing too dramatic, just mild celestial dread. He nods, scribbling furiously on a wax tablet. Shall I prepare a hymn? Make it catchy. Outside, the night deepens. You wander the palace gardens where stone lions guard fountains and moonflowers bloom with theatrical timing. Somewhere nearby, a lyre player practices gently. A soft, clumsy tune, likely an apprentice. You hum along under your breath, pretending not to enjoy it. A servant passes you a message etched in clay rather than ink. You appreciate the effort. It reads, "The sacred duck of Thoth has escaped again." You close your eyes. Of course it has. The sacred duck is neither sacred nor particularly well behaved, but tradition dictates that it must roam the palace grounds, freely pursued only by those who truly believe they can catch it. So far, no one has. You lean against a cool pillar and imagine it waddling past the bronze statues and ornamental pools, a divine force of mildly chaotic poultry. You start to laugh but catch yourself. Pharaohs do not giggle alone at night, at least not loudly. Eventually, the temple bells chime the third hour of night. A servant appears silently with a warm towel for your hands and another list of suggested dreams. Apparently, some people now write down visions they hope to have offering them to the gods like menus. You glance at the list, sailing across a sapphire sea with talking dolphins, discovering a scroll that unlocks eternal wisdom, meeting a younger version of yourself who only wants to play board games. You circle the last one. It sounds manageable. Back in bed, the cat has returned. It kneads the linen beside your feet before curling into a spiral of fur and dreams. You exhale. Another day not quite thrilling but undeniably royal has ended. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again quietly, deliberately, with all the ceremonial boredom your kingdom deserves. Morning arrives not with fanfare but with a sand-colored hush, the kind of dawn that tiptoes through the stone colonnades and pats you gently on the cheek. You stir under a woven linen sheet, one hand instinctively reaching for your ceremonial breakfast spoon. Yes, that's a thing. Yes, it has your name carved in lapis lazuli. And no, you don't share it. Your first visitor is the royal scribe, who walks in backward, muttering praises and apologies like an incantation. He's holding a stack of reed scrolls so high, it leans like a tower about to meet a tiny papyrus-filled fate. Your Majesty, he breathes, there are requests from everyone. Define everyone. Temple stewards, pyramid inspectors, reed farmers, and a man who claims he invented a new kind of broom? You raise an eyebrow. Put the broom man at the top. I like innovation. He nods solemnly as if this is the most Pharaoh-like decree since build me a large triangle and don't ask why. You stretch, noticing how stiff your joints are today. Not painful, just monarch stiff. The kind of stiffness that comes from sitting on too many thrones, shaking too many hands, and pretending to enjoy ceremonial melon slices in front of foreign diplomats. You trudge out to your morning audience like someone headed to a spa that only offers sandpaper facials. Along the way, you pass murals of your youthful exploits, hunting hippos, smiting enemies, inventing some extremely niche board games. You pause before the one where you're spearing a fish with superhuman precision. Historians still argue whether that fresco is metaphorical or just wildly optimistic art direction. Evidence suggests you were at best a competitive but average fisherman. In the Hall of Petitions, the air smells of papyrus beeswax and carefully filtered flattery. You settle onto the throne of mildly supportive authority, which has been padded in secret by your steward using surplus goose feathers. First up, a tax appeal from a village that claims its sacred ibis statue keeps sneezing. You listen, nod, suggest seasonal pollen, offer 3 bronze coins for bird herbs. They weep with gratitude. Next, a poet requests funding for an ode about clouds. How many stanzas, you ask? 400, he replies. Make it 20. We'll call it breezy. Then comes the broom man. He's nervous, sweaty, and this is important, holding a broom upside down. My Pharaoh, he begins, observe. He turns the broom the right way up and it swivels at the base, smoothly. You lean forward. Is that a rotating joint? Yes, for better corner sweeping. You nod, deeply moved. You have changed the world. He faints from joy. Your guards carry him out like a hero, which in a way he is. Later, during your midday reprieve, you hide in the palace archive. Not because you're studying statecraft or researching foreign scrolls, but because it's cool, quiet, and no one ever thinks to look for you there. Also, the head archivist brews a cardamom tea so strong it could resurrect your teenage curiosity. You sip it while flipping lazily through an old weather record from year 12 of your reign. Unseasonably windy, it notes temple awnings flapped dramatically. You chuckle. Temple drama, always the best kind. A small note in the margin adds the high priest of Bastet accused a pigeon of blasphemy. You circle it with joy. Somewhere there's a mural waiting to be painted. A low-ranking scribe tiptoes in to ask a question about historical dates. You answer vaguely and reward him with half a fig. He bows 6 times. You remind yourself power is measured not in gold, but in how many people bow when you hand them produce. Afternoon sun makes the floor tiles glow amber. You wander out into the covered portico where the smell of fig leaves and warmed limestone dances in the air. The sacred duck waddles past again. It pauses, stares at you, and emits a single judgmental quack. You nod back. We all have our roles. Dinner preparations begin, and a chef presents today's menu: lentils shaped like little pyramids, roasted goat with apricot glaze, and a dessert called Pharaoh's Secret, which turns out to be just dates. You pretend to be surprised. Incredible. The kitchen beams with pride. As twilight falls, you receive one final message. A delegation from Nubia is arriving in 3 days. They request a pleasant welcome and a mildly impressive parade. You nod. Tell them we'll make it moderately unforgettable. Before bed, you light a lamp shaped like a lion and read from a scroll of proverbs. Most are generic: don't insult the potter if you live in a clay house, but one catches your eye. The longest reign is not the noisiest. You smile, tuck the scroll under your pillow, and prepare to dream of clouds, sneezing birds, and brooms with legacy. The dawn creeps in like a shy cat, brushing pale light across the polished floors of your chamber. You awaken to the familiar sound of servants bustling outside, preparing another day of ceremonies, designed to impress but mostly impress boredom upon you. You sit up and notice your royal slippers, soft gold embroidered and tragically lacking arch support. They remind you that even comfort in the palace is a carefully crafted illusion. Today's first event is a grand temple visit to honor the god Amun. You join the procession, robes trailing and sandals squeaking ever so slightly. The priests chant in their slow, melodic tones, incense curling in lazy spirals like ancient promises. You offer a small nod as the high priest recounts your reign's achievements, which mostly boil down to continued existence and mild prosperity. The crowd applauds politely. The temple's walls are adorned with scenes of pharaohs performing heroic deeds, slaying serpents, taming bulls, and occasionally fixing sandals. You smile wistfully at a relief depicting a distant ancestor holding a sword with gusto. The priests present you with a ceremonial staff topped with a lotus flower, symbolizing purity and rebirth. You hold it carefully, almost expecting it to sprout petals. Nearby, a scribe tries to capture the moment on papyrus, but accidentally spills ink on the floor. You think maybe even heroes have their clumsy days. Historians still argue whether these temple visits served more as spiritual obligations or as political theater to distract from, well, pretty much everything else. You suspect it's a bit of both. After the ritual, you retire to the royal gardens, an oasis of palm trees, ornamental pools, and sculpted hedges, shaped suspiciously like animals no one remembers. You stroll among the fragrant blooms, noting the color of the lotus petals, the way the sunlight filters through the leaves. Your thoughts drift to your personal project, the royal sandal collection. You've amassed dozens of sandals over the years, each with a story of where you wore it: once to a feast, another to a diplomatic meeting, and one particularly tragic pair that got soaked in Nile water during a boat ceremony. You pause before a glass case displaying the oldest pair, worn thin and held together with a gold thread. Someone remarks that future pharaohs might make a museum of these. You chuckle, or a foot clinic. Lunch is served in the Hall of Quiet Conversations. The menu today is a humble mix of barley soup figs and roasted fish that tastes surprisingly fresh despite the heat. You eat slowly, mindful of the priests who have dietary preferences that forbid wasting even a crumb. The afternoon brings a meeting with foreign envoys who arrive with extravagant gifts and vague threats. You listen with polite smiles, nodding at the right moments, occasionally interjecting with a carefully rehearsed phrase about the Nile's eternal generosity. Your falcon watches from its perch, eyes gleaming with judgment. Later, you inspect the latest temple reliefs. The artists have been busy carving your image in heroic poses, bow in hand, chariot racing, offering libations to the gods. You admire the craftsmanship, but wonder if you look a bit too serious. Perhaps next time, a small smile. As the sun dips below the horizon, you find yourself on the palace balcony, gazing out over the shimmering Nile. The water reflects the fiery sky, and you feel for a fleeting moment a spark of something resembling contentment. Then a breeze ruffles your robes, and you realize tomorrow will bring the same slow dance. And you are, well, still very bored. The dawn spills softly through the lattice of your chamber window, casting long, sleepy shadows on the cool stone floors. You rise with the same measured rhythm as the Nile itself, steady, unwavering, and just a touch dull. Your footsteps echo faintly as you move toward the Hall of Offerings, where today's ceremonies await your patient presence. The air inside the hall is thick with incense smoke and the murmurs of priests reciting ancient hymns. You settle into your throne, heavy with gold leaf and expectations, and listen as offerings are presented baskets of figs, jars of honey, and freshly baked bread, shaped like lotus blossoms. You nod appreciatively, though your thoughts drift. You wonder if the gods ever get bored too, or if they find amusement in watching you endure these endless rituals with such grace. A young priest approaches his voice barely above a whisper, bearing a scroll inscribed with new regulations for temple upkeep. You skim the parchment and approve without hesitation. After all, what's a few more rules in a reign already defined by stability? Outside the courtyard bustles with activity. Musicians tune their instruments and dancers prepare costumes woven with gold threads. Tonight's festival will be lavish as always, a grand spectacle designed to honor the gods and remind your people of their blessed ruler. You watch from the balcony as artisans put the finishing touches on towering floral arrangements and intricate sand paintings. The vibrant colors contrast with the steady beige of the palace walls, a reminder that life still bursts forth even in the most orderly of places. Historians still argue whether these festivals were genuine acts of devotion or clever displays of political power. You suspect it was a bit of both, much like your reign itself. As the sun sinks low, the festivities begin. Music fills the air, a slow hypnotic rhythm that carries through the night. You recline on cushions shaded by richly embroidered canopies and watch as dancers twirl and weave tales through their movements. The scent of spiced wine drifts by and you accept a cup with a faint smile. The wine is sweet and comforting, a rare indulgence in an otherwise restrained existence. You think about the countless festivals you've overseen, each one a carefully rehearsed dance of tradition and spectacle. Yet beneath the surface, you sense a quiet yearning for change, for excitement, for something beyond the endless cycle of ceremonies. But for now, you settle into the evening's rhythms, letting the music and laughter wash over you like the gentle flow of the Nile itself. And as stars blaze overhead, you close your eyes, embracing the familiar lullaby of your long, very bored reign. Morning light creeps softly through the lattice windows, casting dappled shadows on the cool, polished floors. You rise slowly, aware that today, like every day in your reign, promises a steady rhythm of ceremonies and responsibilities. You find comfort in the predictable, even as a small part of you longs for the unexpected. Your first duty is a visit to the royal granaries, where sacks of grain are stored with meticulous care. The steward awaits your arrival, eyes bright with nervous anticipation, clutching a ledger thicker than a crocodile's hide. He reports on the current stock, the quality of the recent harvest, and ongoing efforts to prevent spoilage. You nod, thoughtfully aware that food security underpins the very stability of your kingdom. It's a silent achievement overshadowed by the more dramatic tales of conquest and upheaval that fill history books, but no less important. Later, you attend a council meeting with your trusted advisors. Discussions meander through topics both weighty and mundane, from river maintenance schedules to the fine points of sandal fashion. You listen, interjecting only when necessary, your responses measured and deliberate. One advisor proposes a new taxation system based on the number of livestock owned, a plan met with mixed reactions. You weigh the options carefully, understanding that any change could ripple through your kingdom in unpredictable ways. Historians still debate whether your cautious approach was wisdom or inertia, but those who live under your rule appreciate the peace it brings. As the sun reaches its zenith, you retire to your private gardens. Here, amid the scent of blooming lotus and the soft buzz of bees, you find moments of quiet reflection. You watch as a pair of doves coo softly, their gentle sounds a balm to your sometimes restless mind. A servant brings you a cup of tea infused with mint and honey, its warmth a comforting contrast to the afternoon heat. You sip slowly, savoring the simple pleasure. The day continues with a ceremonial procession through the city streets. Citizens line the roads, waving palm fronds and offering respectful bows. You acknowledge them with a slow, dignified wave, aware that your presence, however subdued, offers reassurance. As dusk settles, you return to your chambers, the golden light casting long shadows across the walls. You ponder the legacy of your reign, not one of great battles or sweeping reforms, but of enduring stability and quiet dignity. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, you find solace in the knowledge that even the most unremarkable reign has its own form of greatness. You awake again to the muted sounds of the palace, stirring a blend of whispered prayers, the soft rustling of linens, and the faint clatter of sandals on stone. The day ahead holds its usual gentle cadence, a series of carefully orchestrated events that fill your time with purpose, even if not with excitement. Your morning begins with a ritual visit to the Temple of Ra, where the high priests gather to offer blessings on your reign. The chamber is filled with golden light filtered through stained glass, and reflecting off polished bronze. Incense curls in slow spirals, and the air is thick with the scent of myrrh and lotus. You stand beneath towering columns carved with scenes of gods and mortals intertwined, feeling the weight of tradition settle comfortably on your shoulders. The chief priest presents you with a ceremonial staff, topped with a miniature sun disk, symbolizing your role as the earthly embodiment of divine light. You accept it with a gracious nod, understanding the importance of symbolism in a reign defined by continuity rather than conquest. Later, you meet with the royal council to discuss the upcoming festival honoring the Nile's inundation, a celebration that ensures the fertility of your lands and the prosperity of your people. Plans are made for offerings, dances, and feasts, each detail meticulously attended to by your trusted advisors. As the afternoon sun warms the palace gardens, you retreat to your private chambers. Here, among carefully tended lotus ponds and carved stone benches, you find a moment of quiet respite. A servant brings you a delicate cup of wine infused with pomegranate, its sweetness a small delight against the backdrop of routine. You reflect on your legacy, the temples, built the laws, maintained the peace preserved. Historians still debate whether your reign was marked by cautious stewardship or a lack of ambition. Perhaps it was a bit of both. As evening descends, the palace comes alive with music and light. Musicians play lyres and flutes their melodies, weaving through the cool night air. Dancers move with grace and precision, telling stories of gods and kings in fluid motion. You watch from your throne, a figure of calm amidst the vibrant spectacle. As the festival reaches its peak, you feel a rare spark of satisfaction. Not from drama or victory, but from the simple, enduring rhythm of life, steady as the Nile, gentle as the desert breeze. You close your eyes, letting the music carry you toward dreams of golden sands and tranquil waters. The dawn creeps over the horizon like a slow, deliberate awakening, washing your chamber in soft golds and pinks. You rise once again to the familiar cadence of palace life, where every gesture is steeped in centuries of ritual, and even the simplest actions carry weighty significance. Your first task today is the inspection of the royal archives. The halls here are lined with shelves of papyrus scrolls, their fragile surfaces etched with the history and wisdom of your ancestors. You run your fingers lightly over a stack, feeling the texture of stories preserved in ink and time. A scribe approaches, bowing deeply. He unfurls a new scroll, a genealogy of your family meticulously chronicled with dates, names, and a few embellishments designed to impress foreign dignitaries. You nod appreciatively, though part of you wonders how many of these ancestors ever experienced anything as mundane as a bad sunburn or a missed meal. You pause before a scroll detailing the construction of a recent temple. The plans are elaborate, filled with measurements and symbolic designs meant to honor the gods. You think about the hands that carved each stone and the prayers whispered during the laying of the foundation. Historians still argue whether such architectural projects were acts of devotion or displays of power, but you suspect they were both a testament to the delicate balance your reign has maintained. Later, you convene a council meeting to discuss matters of state grain storage, irrigation schedules, and the subtle art of court diplomacy. Your advisors present reports with practiced solemnity, each word weighed for its impact. You listen, offering measured responses and occasional wisdom learned from decades of navigating the slow currents of power. As the sun reaches its zenith, you retreat to the palace gardens where lotus flowers bloom with serene beauty. You sit by a fountain, watching water ripple in endless patterns and savor a rare moment of peace. Dinner is served in the grand hall, simple fare made exquisite by skilled hands, roasted duck honey-glazed figs and bread, still warm from the oven. The flavors mingle, comforting and familiar. As night falls, you stand once more on the palace balcony. The stars glitter like scattered jewels, and the Nile reflects their shimmer in quiet majesty. You breathe deeply, embracing the calm that has defined your reign. And as sleep beckons, you find contentment in the gentle flow of days lived with dignity and grace. You awaken to the soft sounds of the palace, stirring a gentle murmur of servants moving about, the faint clinking of vessels, and the distant call of a sacred ibis. Today promises little upheaval, just the steady hum of royal life, unfolding with quiet dignity. Your morning begins with a visit to the temple of Hathor, goddess of music and joy. The halls are alive with the delicate sounds of lyres and flutes, their melodies weaving through the incense-laden air. Priests and priestesses move gracefully, adorned in flowing robes embroidered with gold thread. You are led to the central sanctuary, where offerings are made, fresh flowers, honey cakes, and finely woven linen. You present a small libation, a gesture of reverence and continuity. The high priest recites blessings that have echoed through these walls for generations. Their words are soothing, rhythmic a reminder of the unbroken chain linking past, present, and future. You think about the long stretch of years you have ruled a reign marked not by conquest but by preservation. The Nile continues its sacred course. The temples stand tall. Your people thrive in their routines. Historians still debate whether such steadiness was a sign of strength or complacency. You suspect it was both shaped by the delicate balance of fate and choice. After the temple visit, you convene a meeting with architects and artisans. Plans are drawn for a new water canal to aid irrigation, an ambitious project promising to enhance the fertility of the lands you steward. You listen attentively as detailed maps and measurements are presented. The work is painstaking, slow moving, but vital. Later in the gardens, you stroll among blossoming papyrus and lotus blooms, reflecting on the intricate dance of nature and governance. A servant offers you a refreshing drink infused with mint and dates its sweetness a welcome respite from the desert heat. As evening descends, the palace fills with the soft glow of oil lamps. Music and storytelling drift through the halls, weaving tales of gods and kings, love and lost power and humility. You find yourself drawn into the stories, their gentle cadence, a balm to your weary soul. And as the night deepens, you prepare to rest once more beneath the endless Egyptian sky, comforted by the knowledge that your long, steady reign has left a quiet but enduring mark on the sands of time. The morning light filters softly through the latticed windows, casting delicate patterns upon the cool stone floors of your chamber. You awake as always to the familiar rhythms of the palace, the distant murmur of prayer, the soft shuffle of sandals, the whisper of silk against marble. Today brings the ceremonial inspection of the royal granaries, an event both crucial and tediously predictable. The granary steward awaits a man whose earnestness in reporting grain reserves borders on the comedic. He presents sacks of wheat, barley, and emmer with an almost theatrical flourish, as though each kernel carries the weight of the kingdom. You nod gravely at his reports, offering measured praise. The granaries are well stocked, the harvest bountiful, stability the cornerstone of your long reign. Later, you meet with your council to discuss irrigation plans and the upcoming festival celebrating the Nile's annual flooding. The discussions are methodical, punctuated by detailed maps and plans etched on papyrus scrolls. Your advisors debate the merits of extending canal systems versus reinforcing dikes. You listen occasionally, interjecting with quiet wisdom born of years observing the river's temper. Historians still argue whether such deliberations were signs of prudent governance or cautious procrastination. You suspect a little of both, tempered by the slow currents of power and tradition. As afternoon wanes, you retreat to your private gardens where lotus flowers bloom with serene grace. You find comfort in the gentle rustle of leaves and the soft buzz of bees among the blossoms. A servant offers you a cup of spiced wine, its warmth a pleasant contrast to the desert's dry heat. You savor it slowly, letting the flavors linger. As evening falls, the palace comes alive with music and light. Dancers weave intricate patterns on the marble floors, their movements a tribute to gods and kings alike. You watch from your throne, a figure of calm amidst the vibrant display. And as the night deepens, you find solace in the enduring rhythms of your reign, steady, unbroken, and quietly magnificent. The final morning of your long reign dawns softly, the sun casting a gentle glow over the sandstone walls and the still waters of the Nile. You awaken with a quiet sense of closure, the weight of years settled like fine dust on your shoulders. Today is a day of reflection rather than action, a chance to honor the years you've ruled with steady hands and a calm heart. You dress in your finest linen robes, their golden trim catching the early light, and make your way to the Hall of Ancestors. The walls here are lined with portraits and statues, each a testament to those who came before you. You trace a finger along the carved name of a distant predecessor, imagining the dreams and doubts that must have filled his days. A priest approaches carrying a small vessel of sacred water. You receive it with reverence, pouring a libation to the gods and your ancestors alike. The ceremony is simple yet profound. No grand speeches or dramatic gestures, just the quiet acknowledgement of time's passage and the enduring legacy of those who lead. Later, you stroll through the palace gardens one last time. The air is fragrant with jasmine and lotus, the soft buzz of bees a gentle soundtrack to your thoughts. You pause beneath a fig tree, plucking a ripe fruit and savoring its sweetness, a small, perfect pleasure amid a lifetime of measured duties. Your thoughts turn to the future, to the unknown king who will follow your steps. You hope he finds joy in the slow moments, strength and stability, and perhaps a bit less boredom than you did. As the sun sets for the final time over your reign, you sit quietly on your throne, feeling the cool stone beneath you and the steady pulse of history around you. You have ruled not with thunder, but with a gentle, persistent rhythm, an enduring presence that shaped an era through calm and constancy. And as night falls, you close your eyes, embracing the peaceful sleep that comes to those who have lived fully if quietly.